Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We do apologize, we are a couple of minutes late. Today is World Environment Day, and we are celebrating our environment, not just today, but throughout the lead up to COP26 with events and activities. This year, the United Kingdom will host the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, in Glasgow, Scotland from 1st to 12th November 2021. The focus is on our planet and our future. The Climate Connection brings people around the world together to meet the challenges of climate change through arts and culture, education, and the English language. It's about ideas, innovation, and real change. So please visit www.britishcouncil.org/climate-connection for more information, and please join the global climate conversation. The hashtags are hashtag COP26, hashtag the climate connection, hashtag climate change, and hashtag together for our planet. Change can only happen when all of us, and especially young people, are actively involved, collaborating and innovating across borders and generations. Before we begin, let me remind you to please include your questions and comments in the chat, and we will address them in the Q&A section a little later on. Please do engage and join in the conversation. Okay, so to our guest this evening. We are delighted to once more host Dr. Inoka Suraweera in this session entitled Living in Harmony with Nature, Commemorating World Environment Day 2021. Dr. Inoka Suraweera, MBBS, MSc, is a doctor of medicine specialized in community medicine. She currently works at the Directorate of Environmental and Occupational Health at the Ministry of Health as a consultant community physician. She is actively engaged in both undergraduate and postgraduate medical teaching in the areas of occupational and environmental health, and is also a visiting lecturer on occupational health at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Rajarata. She has published several journal articles on occupational health and environmental health in peer-reviewed journals, and made several presentations and speeches at national and international conferences in the areas of occupational and environmental health. She has represented the Ministry of Health in Sri Lanka at various international meetings and has provided expertise in the areas of occupational and environmental health. Her broad topic today is living in harmony with nature, hope for health and happiness for our children, with a focus on the determinants of health and environment and the responsibility of us all to nurture and safeguard the environment for the generations to come. This session will take approximately 90 minutes. Please don't forget to include your questions and comments in the chat section, and we will take them up at the end of Dr. Suraweera's presentation. Dr. Suraweera, welcome back to these sessions hosted by the British Council Library, and thank you once again for agreeing to share your knowledge and expertise. It's wonderful to have you back. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Please begin your presentation whenever you are ready.
Thank you very much. Just a minute, please. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can, Dr. Suraweera. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you so much, and sorry for the delay. Well, it's my pleasure to talk about this topic, living in harmony with nature, hope for health and happiness for our children, especially on this very important day where we commemorate and celebrate the Environment Day. I wish to thank the British Council for giving me this opportunity. I would like to briefly give an outline of my presentation today. Firstly, I will be talking about the determinants of health, then the environmental risks, and of course, the health impacts. I'll be focusing on air pollution, chemical misuse, water and sanitation, climate change. Then I'll go on to managing environmental risks, and certainly, last but not least, our responsibility. First, we'll try to understand what health is. As per the WHO definition, health is physical, mental, and social well being. We need to understand that it is not merely the absence of disease. Health status and well being is affected by so many determinants. You will understand the social environment, economic environment, biological influences, the genetics, health behaviors, health services. All those will determine the health status and well being of people. And I must highlight this fact, the physical environment. Physical environment is a very significant determinant of health status and well-being of humans. The air we breathe, the waters, the soil, all those things are very important in determining health of humans. If we try to understand the bigger picture, again, as per the WHO organization, 23% of all global deaths are linked to the environment. So that is basically around 12.6 million deaths a year. Where is it happening? 3.8 million deaths happen in the Southeast Asian region. That is where we live in. 3.5 million deaths in the Western Pacific region. 2.2 million in the Africa. So you can see the details. But I need to tell you, these are premature deaths mostly, and most of these deaths are preventable. If we try to understand the significant environmental risks, certainly air pollution is something very important, both indoors as well as outdoors. Inadequate water sanitation, chemical misuse, radiation, community noise, occupational risks, agricultural practices, built environments, and most importantly, climate change are environmental risks which affect the human health significantly. Now, let us try to understand about air pollution. We all know that we cannot survive without air. Air is very important to all humans. And again, as per the WHO, clean air in and around the home is essential to a healthy life, and we all know that. What is air pollution? Just to briefly tell you, I think you must be knowing about it. But just to briefly tell you what air pollution is, air pollution happens when gases, dust particles, fumes, or smoke or odors, when they are introduced into the atmosphere in a way that makes it harmful to humans, animals, and plants. We talk about two main types of air pollution, basically outdoor air pollution and indoor air pollution. This is a photo of a city where air pollution is happening. These are some of the other photographs. I'm sure you can imagine the ones who are living here cannot breathe properly. As per the WHO, air pollution is one of the world's largest single health risks. Just to briefly tell you about some of the air pollutants. These are very, very important air pollutants: carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, lead, sulfur dioxide, ozone, and specifically, I have shown in red the particulate matter. We measure these things as PM10, that is PM2.5. These are minute particles. These can just get into the lungs, and especially these ultrafine particles, they can get into the bloodstream through the alveoli, through the small air sacs in the lungs. Just to show you some of the sources of outdoor air pollution, certainly the industrial emissions, the traffic congestion. We actually experience these things in Sri Lanka as well as other major cities in the world. But due to COVID, of course, now the traffic congestion has reduced. Certainly, you can see the smoke coming out of these vehicles, open burning of waste as well as polythene and plastics. This is something commonly practiced in our country. These practices certainly pollute the environment to a large extent. And when you burn polythenes and plastics, especially plastics, what happens is, in addition to the particulate matter, the carbon dioxide as well as the carbon monoxide, they generate dioxins and furans. These dioxins, furans are very harmful to human health, especially they can cause cancers. If you try to understand indoor air pollution, around 4.3 million deaths, again, happen worldwide due to indoor air pollution. 1.69 million deaths in the Southeast Asian region actually has happened in 2012. Now, when it comes to indoors, of course, you can imagine that the occupational settings, schools, other buildings, as well as the households are considered. But I would like to take the household air pollution separately because it's something very significant. And especially for developing countries, household air pollution is a bigger public health problem sometimes, maybe more than outdoor or ambient air pollution due to certain factors. Air pollution from household fuel combustion is one of the most important environmental health risks. Still, around 3 billion people cook and heat their homes using biomass or solid fuel, charcoal, dung, crop waste. These pollute household airs significantly. Just to mention some of the indoor air pollutants: fine particles, again, particulate matter, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, mostly in office settings and all where you have a lot of furniture, emissions from carcinogenic chemicals, dioxins and furans due to plastic burning inside houses. Sometimes this happens when actually this is a practice in Sri Lanka where some of the females, when they cook, they add these plastics into the fire so that there is so that they catch the fire easily. And those practices are there, and those things actually pollutes the household environments. Certainly, second-hand smoke is again polluting the environments inside households. Just to briefly mention some of the reasons for household air pollution: poor ventilation, absence of chimneys or vents. When you cook, and of course in Sri Lanka we don't light firewood for heating, it's only for cooking purposes. Some households use unclean fuels such as firewood for cooking purposes. As I mentioned previously, for the initiation process, they add plastics. And certainly, when you burn plastics at lower temperatures, we all know, in addition to the other air pollutants, dioxins can be formed, so which is very, very toxic and inside households. Things like mosquito coils, cigarette smoke, all those can adversely affect the air quality inside households. As per the WHO, around 91% of world population breathe air above the WHO air quality guidelines, so which means 91% of the world population breathe air that is not so good for their health. Therefore, we need to understand that air pollution is a silent killer. Actually, air pollution is affecting our health. Ambient air pollution kills around 4.2 million people in the world. Household air pollution is again a huge problem, and the estimates are 3.8 million deaths per year. So the joint effects of household air pollution and ambient air pollution is 7 million deaths per year. And mind you, these are mostly premature deaths. 4.2 million deaths in 2016 due to ambient air pollution. Household air pollution, again, 3.8 million premature deaths. Women and children, they are the most affected. Why? Because most of the times, women and children, they live indoors. And if you just try to look at the diseases, I will explain it further. Out of this 3.8 million, 18% of the people, they have died due to stroke. 27% from heart disease, 20% from long lasting lung diseases, 8% from lung cancer. The whole world is fighting non-communicable diseases. Actually, it's an invisible killer. Again, as with WHO and several other agencies, cancer is from stroke, is from air pollution. 25% of the deaths from heart disease and 43% of the deaths from lung cancer is due to air pollution. Earlier, of course, the people thought air pollution affects only the lungs. But now you can see it's not only affecting the lungs, but certainly the cardiovascular system, lung cancers, and even stroke. Just to show you other impacts. Basically, air pollution affects almost all systems in our body. I mentioned about stroke, heart diseases, And also, I would like to focus your attention to reproductive system and the fetus. Low birth weight, preterm birth, lower sperm quality are all effects of exposing to air pollution. Not only that, even diabetes show a relationship with increased air pollution levels. Heart diseases, stroke. Well, we don't want young people to see like this. Especially you can see the lungs when you are exposed to air pollution over long periods of time. Lungs are pink and very elastic, but this lung is not pink, it's black. You see the black mottling. So do you think this lung can be normal? And do you think that it can perform the normal breathing? No. Certainly, this is a sick lung. Who are at most risk? We need to understand the vulnerable populations. Unborn, young children, pregnant mothers, females, elderly, people who have respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, certainly lower socioeconomic groups, and certain groups of workers. They are all at a higher risk of developing the adverse health outcomes. I would like to draw your attention to children. 93% of children under 18 years, they play and live with air pollution levels above WHO guidelines, which means 93% of the children, they breathe bad air. If we try to understand the burden of disease of children, out of the 7 million deaths, 543 deaths are happening in children under 5 years. 52,000 deaths have happened in children aged 5 to 15 years. The children, they fall prey, but have they done anything? They have not polluted the air, but unfortunately, they have to pay the price. Just to show you the impact of air pollution on children's health. Certainly, they say the children will have stunted air growth, reduced lung functions, increased risk of developing asthma, increased risk of developing pneumonia. They have impaired mental and motor development. They will have behavioral disorders. Now scientists have shown a clear relationship between autism and air pollution. When children live in environments with air pollution, the chances of getting autism is more. Low birth weight, premature birth, and even infant deaths are linked to air pollution, certain childhood cancers, and most importantly, what we need to understand is when children are exposed to air pollution, they are at an increased risk of developing heart disease, diabetes, and stroke in adulthood. This is something serious. We need to understand that air pollution is stunting our children's brains as well as stunting their lives. Just to tell you why it is so important, because you can understand by when you look at this picture, when they are exposed at an early stage, especially when most important organs are forming, they can get severe adverse health outcomes when later in their adulthood. That is about air pollution. That is about the most important aspect for our life. Now we turn on to chemical misuse. Certainly, this is a very important problem, not only in Sri Lanka but world over. Improper usage. This happens in certain agricultural, when they practice certain agricultural things like, maybe usage of pesticides, and even in work settings. Improper disposal of waste, certainly improper storage, improper manufacturing practices, improper transportation. All these things are considered chemical misuse, and of course, they can pollute the environment. If we try to understand about waste, how waste is disposed, well, in Sri Lanka too, we don't have proper waste disposal systems in certain areas. You can see how waste is disposed. Plastic waste, and when you have waste, there is burning of waste, there is dumping on the ground. Certainly, you need to be mindful of e-waste, and the issue continues. When we don't have proper mechanisms of management of all kinds of waste, there is air pollution, there's water pollution, there's soil pollution. And you will see air pollution related health effects. Of course, when water is polluted through chemical substances, and especially when it comes to waste, then we can experience biological pollutants getting into water bodies. Soil, of course, again is polluted. And certainly humans are affected mainly through food. Just to show you certain effects, because when it comes to chemicals, I'm not in a position to describe everything, but I want to draw your attention to some chemicals, especially things like mercury. Even mercury is a substance which can accumulate, so we call it bioaccumulate. Mercury is a chemical which has the feature of bioaccumulation and also biomagnification. So it can build up the food chains, and humans, when they eat food stuff which is contaminated with mercury, still, of course, they can build up mercury inside their bodies. And this is one of the photographs you see due to methyl mercury. I think you would have heard about the Minamata's disease and the unfortunate incidents that happened in Minamata. I would like to draw your attention to certain chemicals which we call the endocrine disrupting chemicals. We need to be very careful with chemicals because scientists have found certain chemicals having properties of disrupting the endocrine systems of humans as well as other living organisms. Things like DDT, bisphenol A, polychlorinated biphenyls, polybrominated diphenyl ethers, phthalates. These chemicals have the properties of endocrine disruption. Well, endocrine disrupting chemicals, they can certainly affect human health adversely. Most importantly, the reproductive effects. Certain studies have shown that males' reproductive systems are affected with these, and as a result, they will not be able to father children. And in addition to that, of course, they can have adverse effects like cancers. On the other hand, females, they can have precocious puberty, which means children can attain menarche at a very early age. Certainly, endocrine disrupting chemicals are associated with hormone dependent cancers such as brain cancers, breast cancers, testicular cancers. Therefore, we need to be very careful because scientists are trying to understand the effects of mixtures, chemical mixtures. We really don't know how these things are affecting the biological systems, especially humans. We'll try to understand something about water and sanitation. Isn't water, good water, something very basic for all humans? That is a basic human right. Again, sanitation, toilet facilities. Still, there is a significant percentage of people in this world who are deprived of good quality water, who are deprived of sanitation. And in addition to this, of course, there are effects of quality of water. When water and sanitation is considered, again, we see diarrheal diseases have been controlled successfully. We cannot be happy on the day we are commemorating the Environmental Day that still children in the world are deprived of good water and sanitation facilities. Well, the ultimate goal is the protection of human health. We don't want children immersed in toxic chemicals. I would like to draw your attention to something very important. Just have a closer look at this photo. This has been taken in the year 1970. This is a photo of the volcano Kilimanjaro. Now I invite you to have a look at it again. This photograph has been taken in 2000. If you just can remember, you can see the ice caps reducing, which means the ice has reduced. What does that mean? Climate change. We need to understand that climate change is not fiction. Certainly, climate change has happened in the past. Climate change is happening currently. Climate change is going to happen in the future at a rate which is not at all acceptable. It's not only the polar bears. Wake up, humans. You are endangered too. Try to understand the major areas of health impacts due to climate change. Weather-related disease and illness and death, vector-borne diseases, heat-related illness and death, waterborne diseases, respiratory diseases, heart disease, stroke, foodborne disease, nutritional diseases, mental health and stress-related disorders, human developmental effects, neurological disease, and certain cancers. So you can see climate change is also affecting our health to a great extent. Of course, when you look at this picture, you can understand the future is not going to be bright. We will see more effects due to climate change, more adverse health outcomes. We'll talk about the natural disasters. Certainly, our region, that is the Southeast Asian region, is going to be affected to a great extent. Natural disasters are going to be more common in the future with increasing intensity. As I mentioned, Southeast Asia is at a higher risk. Death and disability is going to rise, and certainly the environmental refugees. Even currently in our country, due to heavy rains, we have floods. And then as a result, in certain places, we have landslides. Try to understand the mental status of all these affected people. You have the small children, you have the school-going children, you have the elders. Well, it's not so healthy, isn't it? These are some other photographs. Floods, of course, at one end, the other end droughts, landslides. So do you think our future is going to be very bright and healthy? The rate the things are going on. If we are not careful, I'm sure the future is not going to be healthy and happy. Just to show you some of the photographs due to natural disasters. Effects of floods in rural areas. Everything is affected, including transportation, living conditions. More injuries, disabilities, and drowning from extreme weather events. Is this the future that we are going to give to our children? Impacts of thermal events. Certainly, from time to time in Sri Lanka too, we experience this high temperature or increased temperature spells. In other parts of the world too, they experience, and people die due to these. They can't work. It's going to be something very significant even in the future. Again, Sri Lanka being an agricultural country, imagine the mental status of this farmer. Imagine how he's going to feed his children and the kids. Drought, scarcity of food, malnutrition. Just think how much of food is wasted in the world and in Sri Lanka. I think we will be able to show you a video at the end of this presentation. This mother is trying to dig some water, I guess, for the child. And I don't know whether she's going to be successful. On the other hand, I suppose the child is crying for water. If the child cries for air again, try to understand the situation of future generations. Then we will have a look at the vector-borne diseases. You know that dengue is a big problem in Sri Lanka and so to other countries in the world. Well, if you just have a look at again this graph or the map, in 1990 you can see where dengue was distributed. But if you just see in 2085 the projections, you will see dengue in more countries. And even in Sri Lanka, initially we didn't see dengue in the Central Highlands. But now we see dengue in Central Highlands as well. So vector-borne diseases are going to be a major problem with climate change. Of course, in Sri Lanka, malaria is eradicated. But we can't rest because with climate change, certainly malaria can come again. So we need to be very watchful. I would like to draw your attention to this very, very important slide. With climate change, we will see emerging and re-emerging diseases. Of course, we are amidst a pandemic situation. Did we ever think that we will experience a pandemic of this magnitude during our lifetime? Certainly, this is going to be our future. Emerging diseases, re-emerging diseases. Nipah, virus disease, COVID, we are experiencing it now, and Ebola, so all kinds of diseases. And even diseases which have been controlled can re-emerge due to climate change. We'll try to understand the costs, certainly health costs. I suppose all of you can understand the health costs. We are fighting with COVID-19 right now. And not only this COVID-19, but just imagine the list of diseases that I mentioned due to environmental risks, economic costs. And certainly, can you tell me the cost of suffering from all these injuries, disease, and disabilities? Therefore, we need to manage environmental risks. We need to understand that the environment has no boundaries. Therefore, we need a concerted and a coordinated effort. Action needs to happen at all levels. International level, all countries need to get together. And at national level, especially if you just take Sri Lanka as an example, there are so many sectors which can contribute to developing a healthy environment. Take, for example, the Ministry of Industry. Take, for example, the Transport Ministry, Environmental Ministry, Ministry of Health, local government, where they manage waste. All of us, we need to get together and draw up plans. Provincial district level parents, most importantly, community, we need to get together. And I would say, most importantly, it's the individuals, all of us. We have a huge responsibility in managing environmental risks. Sustainable consumption and production is key to living in harmony with nature. Of course, for that, we need to have behavioral change. Not only behaviors, but attitudinal change. I think it's very cost effective to invest on molding the children so that they will learn to love the nature. They will learn to love the environment. I would like to highlight some very important other point. We need to learn from our ancestors. They lived in harmony with the nature. That is why we are breathing currently. That is why we have water at present. That is why we have this environment at present. We need to see how they lived in harmony. We should not ridicule them. I suppose they were very intelligent, and certainly we will have to learn from them and practice these things that they have done in the past. Very briefly, I just want to mention some of the things that we can do at an individual level, because most people think it is somebody else's responsibility. No, it lies among us. If we think about reduction of vehicle emissions, maintaining our vehicles, using cleaner fuel, use vehicles when necessary. We have the habit of going in vehicles even small distances. I think it's good if we sort of, start walking. That is good for our health as well. Reduction of industrial emissions, to use cleaner technologies, law-abiding industries. Sometimes we see that employers, they don't abide to the law of this country. Well, we should do it. As I mentioned, environment does not have boundaries. Therefore, polluting the environment is not at all good, because that can affect your child as well. We should stop open burning. What can we do as individuals? Stop burning of waste, stop burning of leaves, stop burning of polythene and plastics. For that, we need to reduce generation of waste. Reduce plastic waste generation. Since I don't have the time, I can't mention most of those things. Use your own bags to go shopping. Take your lunch boxes. Reduce using lunch sheets. Never waste food. Engage in sustainable consumption. Refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Conserve resources. Teach your kids to use these things carefully, especially electricity, paper, books, pencils. If you imagine how many pencils, books our children have nowadays, teach them sustainable consumption practices. We need to grow trees. Most importantly, we need to lead a simple life in harmony with nature. Bring your own bag. Stop food wastage. Thinking of consumption and to practice sustainable consumption during each activity. Well, in 10 years' time from now, we can't say we did not know, especially the effects of air pollution, especially the adverse health outcomes due to other environmental risks. We have to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable development means a healthy planet, especially protecting our planet's natural resources, and climate for future generations. We know that our children is our future. They are not little adults. Of course, when the environment is polluted, they are at a higher risk of all these adverse health outcomes. They have immature systems. Their detoxification systems are not fully matured. And also they need to live more future lives. They need to live longer. Because of all these things, they have more time to develop chronic diseases that may be triggered by early exposures. Well, we have a vision for health for our children. Children should develop and mature in an environment that allows them to reach and maintain their full potential. Again, I would like to show this. The ultimate goal is the protection of human health. Well, we need to have a healthy environment, not only for us, the adults, elderly, pregnant mothers, but most importantly, the health of the unborn, our children, and health of future generations as well. And we have a huge responsibility as adults of the present times. I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much. And I think we need to give hope for our children. That is the best gift that we can give to our children. Thank you very much. I think we will look at this video, and I would like to hand over the screen to my host.
Thank you, Dr. Inoka. That was very thoughtful and very thought-provoking. Sajid, please let me know anytime you're ready to play the videos. But until then, I'm going to ask Dr. Inoka a question. Dr. Inoka, thank you, because there was a lot of food for thought. But should we also not be telling our children that the planet belongs to all of us? That is, all creatures, great and small, as I always say. And if we do not care for everything holistically, then we will also perish. You know, if everybody's survival is interdependent, right? Every creature on this earth has a role to play, and our well-being and our survival depends on it. So, how do we take that message to children?
Yes, Mrinali, I think that's a very good and that's something very important that we need to emphasize. Actually, this planet belongs to all of us. We cannot survive in this planet all alone. We need the deers, we need the fish, we need the cobras, we need the earthworms, we need the butterflies, we need the trees. I think as children, we need to understand, and then as adults, it's our duty to teach them that. Unfortunately, maybe as children, we saw these butterflies, like, in large numbers. We saw the ladybirds.
Yeah.
But are the children seeing them now? Do they know about them? So therefore, this planet is not only for the human species. Humans are only one species on this planet. If we don't live in harmony with nature as well as the other species, then of course the nature will try to teach a lesson as now for the human species.
I
Let
think,
us care for the others.
yes. I think we can play a video. Sajid, I don't know which one you're going to play, but please play one of the videos, and then we can take more questions afterwards.
Hi, come on in, have a seat. So good morning, everyone. Hi, come on in, have a seat. So good morning, everyone. When's the last time any of you drew a picture?
Pastime.
Today,
I don't know, Dr. Inoka. I think we might be having connectivity issues. So till we sort it out, would you take a few more questions?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so there was one on the chat about war also causing air pollution. There was a comment really that war also causes air pollution. So maybe that is something we should all think about. And the other thing is, could you just talk about what are the biggest environment factors that impact our air quality in Sri Lanka?
Well, I think we need to look at it this way. Now, ambient air pollution and then household air pollution, as I mentioned. So, ambient air pollution is basically like outside air pollution, outdoor air pollution. Mostly it is from vehicles. We have large numbers of vehicles, especially you can see the traffic jams and all. So, certainly the vehicular emissions are a major source of outdoor air pollution, as well as industrial emissions and burning. Open burning is happening in most part of Sri Lanka currently. In addition to that, of course, the household air pollution, I think, is a significant problem in Sri Lanka. That happens again due to various factors. Especially when the outdoor is polluted, then you can get household air pollution. On the other hand, a significant percentage of our people still rely on biomass burning to prepare their meals. Actually, now once they have not so good ventilation inside their houses, right?
Okay.
Then they can have significant air pollution inside houses. In addition to that, as I mentioned, they have this practice of putting like burning plastics to initiate the fires, which is again very, very toxic. Right. So, and not only that, of course, the biological polluters. Now, if you don't clean your houses, so all those things can add to bad air quality inside households. We need to address these things, I suppose, urgently.
All right. Also, you were talking about chemical pollution. Also, so the chemical pollution in households, does that come from cleaning materials that we use, or from sort of the fabrics that we use for our upholstery, or from where does the chemical pollution really come in sort of ordinary domestic situations?
Well, chemical pollution again happens when you cook, because whatever the fuel you use, there is generation of particles, right? There is generation of other chemicals. So therefore, I would say the major source of chemical pollution inside households would be like, this cooking cooking. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, when you have this furniture, sometimes the furniture also can emit certain chemicals. In addition to that, sometimes people burn joss sticks inside houses where they don't have enough ventilation, mosquito coils, and some people smoke inside. So all those are sources of chemical pollution inside houses.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose a lot of us do like these joss sticks and mosquito coils. I mean, that I think is quite common now, especially because people are afraid of getting dengue. So the thing is, if you open a window and you light it, then there is no, so it's a catch-22, I think, for a lot of people who live in some spaces. So maybe they'll have to rethink, I don't know, maybe there are some plants they can grow that will keep mosquitoes away. So maybe we should be thinking of alternative solutions for some of these things that are endangering us. I'm looking through the chat, and there is somebody who has asked a question about that the Japanese ate fish with a lot of mercury in it, from contaminated industrial waste released into the sea. Do you think our fish, we will have a problem? They want to know.
Well, yes, that was the issue I talked about and I explained. That was the Minamata issue.
Yes.
And now there is what is called this Minamata Convention, and Sri Lanka is also a party to that. So therefore, in Sri Lanka, of course, these mercury-containing waste items such as the CFA bulbs and things have to be managed, and there is something happening with regards to that. Actually, I suppose now, see, they have tested the fish in Sri Lanka, but of course the mercury levels were not up to the toxic level. So therefore, I don't think that we should be sort of, having second thoughts of like, eating fish. So I don't think that has gone to that level in Sri Lanka.
Okay. So we are running a little activity for World Environment Day from the library to encourage children, because a lot of people think unless you have a garden, you can't grow anything. And you were talking about growing trees. So we've called it Every Little Bit of Green Helps. So do you think that's a useful thing? I mean, just even growing something in a little pot, because I think a lot of children can do that. Do you think we should encourage them to get used to growing, little seeds from things that, from the kitchen, so that they get used to this idea of growing something and maybe harvesting also to eat little things like chilies and, I don't know, beans and things like that?
I think that's very important because we need to have green cover, adequate green cover. So from small age onwards, you need to teach them to grow things. And when you grow, actually that helps to improve your mental health, isn't it? You see the leaves coming up and slowly it's like gaining height, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something very useful. And they also will learn to live in harmony then. They will like the trees. So their attitudes would be changed. I think as parents, we need to show those things to children as well as tell them to do it so that with them, they will see the trees growing.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So I'm glad we are doing something like that, because, I mean, what else can we ask children to do to lessen their negative, to improve their footprint? I mean, something that children can do. I know you talked about responsible consumption, but maybe that's too big a concept for a child, Dr. Inoka. Maybe that's adults thinking it. How can we make that more accessible to children, or how can adults talk to children about that?
Yes, I would like to talk about two things, especially stopping food wastage. We can always teach our children not to waste food because food and water, they are going to be very, very expensive items in the future, especially with climate change, with all these anticipated effects. We can teach the children. Now, see, I think our children, especially in like even adults in Sri Lanka, they are wasting a lot of food. I have my experience. I have taught my children, and they are not wasting food. So first thing is not to waste food. Food wastage is a crime. There are so many children who really die in the world even today without food. Second thing is small, they might think these are small things, but just teach the children to switch off the unnecessary lights so that you don't burn the fossil fuel to generate electricity. Those small things they can do. And stop wasting water. Be mindful of, using water carefully. And also, now if I just ask you, Mrinali, how many pencils, how many pens, how many books, how many bags do our children have? Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
from small, now when you and me, of course, we were given only one pencil, we were
yes,
given only one pen,
yeah,
and we very happily used it till the end.
yes.
And
Till
then
it was this
we
size.
took the other. Yes. Then of course we took another one. Actually, that is how our parents taught us sustainable consumption. Are we teaching the same thing to our children? When they say, I have lost this, we give them. We think that is like, loving children. That is not the love. Actually, that is destroying them. So, as adults, we need to be mindful of these things. And then, from small age onwards, teach them sustainable consumption in a way that they can understand. When they, uh, sometimes you can see they go from grade 2 to 3, or at the end of the term, you might have books which are empty. We need to tell them, you better use these things. And maybe as adults, that is our duty.
Yeah, yeah. To help them also to recycle and repurpose things. I think that is
Certainly.
also important, isn't it? To sort of look at things differently so that can I use this for something else now that this use is finished. So it's a big mindset change. So hopefully we will try and do more activities with children also from the British Council to try and get them to rejig the way they think about it. Okay. Yes,
Yes.
doctor. Yeah, you were going to say something.
Yes. And I think the ones who engage in these activities, the ones who practice these things, we have to make them heroes. I suppose even the media has a huge role to play. The ones who use things carefully, we need to make them heroes and recognize them so that all the others also, all other children, they will join with the others.
Yes, I think, yeah, it's also a generation thing. This generation has had plenty, and Sri Lanka is a country of plenty. So I think we have to really rethink a lot of things. You used a very scientific word, and I don't know whether a lot of children understood. You said endocrine system. Can you just tell them a little bit what the endocrine system is? Because you talked about endocrine disruptors.
Yes. Well, endocrine system is basically the system which is having these hormones. Hormones are very much necessary for so many functions. Even for, to live, we need the hormones, especially the reproduction and all that. We need the hormones. If I say the children might understand, thyroxine is a hormone, and growth hormone, and then of course estrogen, testosterone. So those are hormones which are necessary for our life. And if you disrupt those things, that is why I said, uh, like uh, certainly that can affect the reproduction in males as well as in females. Children can attain age at a very early age, right? So those things are not at all acceptable, and certainly people can get cancers which are dependent on these hormones, like breast cancer, testicular cancer, brain cancers. we need to be careful because of those adverse health outcomes.
Thank you, Doctor. Unfortunately, I don't think we can play the videos. Maybe we'll have to do something when we put the recording up. We'll look into that because it's a shame. I know you were very keen to share some of those videos with us. So we'll try not to let it go to waste. But I have no more questions from the chat. So I'm going to wrap this evening up and say thank you, Dr. Inoka. Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to have you, and you always make so much time for us. And we hope that we can partner up again and do some other programs also in the future. So thank you very much, and good luck with everything you do and all the hard work at the ministry. I'm sure these days you all must be very, very, very busy, and we are grateful that you're here with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and you are most welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Inoka. And also for all our, for the audience, please look out for our other events. We have at least one online event every month. But this month, because at least leading up to COP26, because we are especially focusing on the environment, next Sunday at 4 o'clock, we are hosting the Parrot Fish Collective. And they will be talking about how they use digital media and graphic design to raise awareness about climate issues and environment issues, and to raise a voice for conservation. So please join me. That's on Sunday the 13th at 4 o'clock. There was a question about whether we have books on conservation and nature and all of those wonderful things in our library. Yes, we do. We have wonderful, beautiful books in our physical libraries, which unfortunately at this time are closed. But we have a digital library collection. And if you just visit the British Council page, the web page, you can find out how to become a digital library member. It's not expensive at all, and it's an annual membership. And then you can access not only books, but there are journals, academic articles, comics, movies, music. It's wonderful. I'm so grateful these days because I have caught up on some wonderful, wonderful reading and movies. So please do check out our digital library. There will be a recording of this program going up on Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. So I know Dr. Inoka shared a wealth of information. It's a lot to take in an hour. So please go back and revisit it. Share it with your friends because there's so much for all of us to learn from what she said and a lot of food for thought. So please do that. And let us know what you think and what kind of programs you would like to see in the future. And we would love to take those on board, your suggestions. So thank you very much for joining me this evening and joining Dr. Inoka in this program today. And thank you to our Chief Librarian, Shiroma Benragama, who as always is so supportive and helps us put up these shows. And for Sajid Naufa, who handles tech very patiently. I'm just getting, okay, so there are some, very good. The link is available to the digital library in the public chat if you just want to go and check it out now. And so I'm going to say good night and thank you so very much. And please think of the environment, and every little bit of green helps. That's the activity for this month, and that's kind of our slogan for this particular program, because living in harmony with nature means everybody is important. Every creature is important. Every tree and every plant is important. So good night from me. Stay well, stay safe.